while your day is winding down. They're just getting started. This is South Coast Tonight with Chris McCarthy and Marcus Farrow. They've got you covered on all the news of the day, from local issues to politics on both sides of the aisle. This is the place where the movers and shakers come to be heard, to listen, and where they're held accountable. This is South Coast Tonight on WBSM.
Good evening. Welcome back to South Coast Tonight. I'm Marcus Farrow, and Kathleen Amaral from Dartmouth School Cmte. She's going to be joining us momentarily, but I am here with Fun 107's very own Michael Rock. I always just refer to you as colloquially as like the boss or my boss. So what's your official title here?
Director of Content.
Director of Content, Michael Rock. So you were at the New Bedford City Council meeting where they called members of the media. You went up and testified. How did that go?
That makes it sound so official.
Yeah.
If I testified. No, it was a very welcoming atmosphere at the City Council tonight. The members of the media were invited. Locally, we've showed up. ABC 6 and Channel 12 showed up. No Boston stations showed up. They were all invited, and Channel 10 did not show up either. Nor did the Standard Times or the New Bedford Light or New Bedford Guide.
Oh, interesting. So, any hard-hitting questions?
No, I think that it was generally led by Councilor Gomes, and he just was, had concerns about media coverage for the city. And, I told him that, not him, but addressing the whole council, definitely acknowledge that obviously media has changed dramatically over the past decade or two, and that there are things there's a term for it called news deserts.
Yeah.
And these are popping up across the country. And I said that in reality, we're very lucky to have the media that we have in this town.
I agree.
With the size of the town and the resources that we have here to do what we do.
Yeah.
It's very abnormal. It's not a little bit abnormal. Like WBSM is an extremely unique radio station where, it's the fact that you're sitting here live in front of me right now
at this time,
and it's 8:08 at night
yeah.
is freak show stuff.
Yeah.
This does not happen, not in major markets, not in small markets, not in medium-sized markets, but it happens here.
Right.
So, and I told him that, again, not him, I told the whole council that when we were sitting in the conference room coming up with the idea for South Coast Tonight and hammering it out, if you remember, one of the major things we were really excited about was to have the ability to have city councilors call right after they get off the council meeting.
Yes.
Call into the show. Let's talk about, what's happening, what was covered, in the meeting. And again, that is it's freak show stuff. That is not normal in 2023 to be able to have that type of a media. So we're very lucky to have what we have here.
I agree. Did anybody say anything bad about me?
Nobody said anything bad about you, Marcus. No way. No. Actually, I gave them an invitation to all please call, like not just tonight, but whenever they get out of a city council meeting.
Yeah, I'm going to be frank. It's a segment, we've had Adam Bass do his segments after the meetings. They've been the council, I'm going to be frank, has been difficult to pin down on those trying to call in after a meeting. I'll text somebody like, yeah, sure, and then they'll get out of the meeting. I'm tired. So I think that I said this earlier. I think that, one, you're right. I think we have a lot of coverage here that a lot of people don't have. And I think any time that they want to call in, they're always, or they want to show up, they're always welcome.
Well, I mentioned that it's an open door policy for any elected official to show up in any of our shows. I mean, you don't just pop in, but you make an arrangement to appear on the show, and the host will obviously, bring you in. We did talk about, for example, today's fire. So let me preface this by saying that WBSM, the reason that we're able to do what we do in other radio stations in Boston and other places across the country don't, is because our footprint has grown so much with the birth of our digital arm of the company.
Yeah.
So, and that goes for not just WBSM, but Fun 107 as well. The digital reach for both of those brands extends well beyond the radio signals.
Absolutely.
And I think that sometimes it's hard for people to really believe that, and really grasp that in their mind, that the actual, the bigger hammer is the digital.
Yeah, of course. I mean, we can see it too, right? When you look at all the spots that pop up on the dashboard,
yes.
The digital. You from here to California. There's dots all over the place, so people are listening everywhere.
So I laid the foundation there, talking about the importance of digital and how much the media landscape has changed, and that's how we do what we do. And then the topic of today's fire came up, and there was concern that we didn't cut into the Howie Carr show for the fire. And I just said, well, we were there covering it.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean? So we had two people down there covering it. The story was published on WBSM.com, fun107.com. It was pushed out to people with all the
app
phones.
Alerts. Yeah.
Exactly. You get the app alerts. So it's just, I think, a matter of there are certain. I guess like the one thing we have to keep in mind is that there are generations that works for more than others.
Sure.
And so, Councilor Gomes expressed a concern about, there are people certainly that are older that don't have access to a cell phone or a computer or like that. They just don't play that game.
Yeah.
And that's why the radio comes in, and that's so important there. But, that's, pretty much what I talked about when I was up there.
But the most efficient way to reach the most people possible is through the digital outreach.
I would say it's through the combo. That's why it's it's a deadly 1-2 punch.
Yeah.
It's having there are a zillion websites out there, but there are not a zillion websites out there that also have the power of a microphone like this behind them.
Yeah.
So when you add the two together, that's when that you're really doing something. And, and I just think that sometimes there are certain people who put too much value into the radio. There are certain people who put too much value to just the digital.
Sure.
It's when they're combined that it's really powerful. So I think it's just, a little bit of education there about recognizing the coverage and not just the radio.
Absolutely. So is there anything that you think the council could do besides making more appearances here? And I think we do a good job reserving time for them. But besides making more appearances on the radio, is there anything else that you think they could do to make to sort of get more coverage about the thing? Because they want positive coverage.
Well, no, I will say that they did go out of their way to say that this was not about the city council, that they were looking for coverage. Not just about New Bedford, but about the South Coast. They want to. Really, what they want is something like what happened back in the day on New Bedford Cable Access with Jim Phillips, and Jim would do the news of the day, all about New Bedford. Mm-hmm. Those days are done.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean? Like that's not coming back.
Right.
Jim Phillips is not walking through that door.
No,
not for that.
No, no. He's walking through this door on Saturdays.
Yes.
Yeah.
But and then like they were talking to ABC6 and WPRI Channel 12. Councilor Gomes was really pushing them to open up a bureau in New Bedford. Mm-hmm. I don't know if Channel 10 still has that bureau in New Bedford. They used to have like a pop-up shop down there downtown. Yeah, it was maybe in the Standard Times building. I don't know if that's still. Yeah. I really don't know. But they were pushing to get that, get a bureau here.
Yeah.
And you and I both know, like, that's very easier said than done. I mean,
yeah, of course.
Television is reeling right now.
Yeah.
Like they're, not trying to insult the medium at all, but I mean, they're struggling. My kids don't watch television.
Right, exactly.
So, like, what's the plan? As people, like, age out of television and that population, ceases to watch television, right?
Ceases to watch. Yeah, right.
What's the plan there, the long-term plan? So, like, I don't see them investing and growing into the market like that.
No.
And I think that, the councilors were looking to see, like, if the television stations would commit to like a South Coast segment or South Coast like news. I don't see it happening.
Yeah, no.
And again, that is why this radio station is so important.
Exactly.
Because we are willing to commit and super serve this area.
Right.
The WPRI Channel 12 representative was talking about, we cover all of Rhode Island, we cover the South Coast area, and she said that she looked over the stories that had happened over the past month, and she was very comfortable with the amount of content that in the coverage that they did in New Bedford.
Yeah.
But it's not going to be, it's New Bedford is no more or less important to them than any other community. And they've got a lot of communities to cover. And again, like that's just, if they took their eye off the ball and just focused in on New Bedford, that'd be the wrong move.
Especially being in Providence. Why would you want to?
Right. I mean, so, I think that there's just some real business.
Yeah. And that's why it's important that we're hyper-focused here in Greater New Bedford.
Yes.
Yeah.
But, I mean, that's pretty much it. It was a very warm, friendly, no gotcha questions, nothing like that.
Right.
It was very warm and friendly. And I think it was very, the intentions were good.
Okay.
You know what I mean? I didn't sense any kind of animosity, nothing like that.
Well, that's good. I'm glad to hear that. I'm honestly a little surprised. I thought it would. I kind of thought I wasn't sure what you and Tim were walking into, and ended up being pretty fairly positive. So and constructive. So that's good. Michael Rock, I appreciate you joining me. Is there anything else that we might have forgot to cover or didn't talk about?
No, I don't think so. It's bedtime for me, though.
Okay. All right. Yeah. You got to get up early.
Yes. Thank you, Marcus.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for joining me. Appreciate it. We're going to take a quick break. Then we'll be joined by Kathleen Amaral. Welcome back. I forgot to play bumper music. Sorry about that. Anyway, welcome back to South Coast Tonight. I'm Marcus. We're joined now by Dartmouth School Committee member and candidate for reelection, Kathleen Amaral. Kathleen, how are you?
I'm doing well.
Great. So before we get started, for the people out in the audience who may not know who you are, if you want to introduce yourself and tell everyone why you're running for reelection on the Dartmouth School Committee.
So my name is Kathleen Amaral. I have been a resident of Dartmouth for a little over 19 years. I am a parent, and I have 3 children. Actually, my oldest graduated from Dartmouth High School during the pandemic, class of 2020, and she quickly veered, was heading to PC, decided to go to cosmetology school, and she's doing well.
Great.
At a salon locally in Dartmouth. And I have a 19-year-old son who has some comprehensive special education needs. Actually brought me to meet your mom years ago,
right, yeah.
when he was little. And and I have a 7th grader. She's in the middle school.
What inspired you to, obviously you have kids in the school system. That's really important to want a good school system for your kids. But what specific issues inspired you to jump into local politics? Having kids in the school, I was always tried to be. I actually ran for school council when my daughter Emma was little, and she was at DeMello Elementary School. Nobody knew me. I wasn't from town. I just thought I would want to get involved. I've always tried to get involved. I love to contribute and volunteer my time. So that was where I started with the school department. But since then, having Liam enter the school, he joined Quinn. He started out his educational career at the Schwartz Center, now Meeting Street. And when he was 6, it was our vision when he was little that, we wanted him to live a good life. And he needs a lot of supports and services, and it really took partnering with the school. And so he entered Quinn at 6 years old as a kindergartner. We started him late. And just seeing the level of support and the partnership that we had over the years, how could I not put myself out there to run on a bigger level to help also, add
the added value, my lived experience as a parent, navigating special education, disability services, also working in a field. So I felt I had something to contribute that wasn't there. That's really important in a public school department. And so I put my name out there.
How have you used that experience to make some improvements in the Dartmouth School District?
I have the perspective of, again, special education. That certainly is not the only thing that I contribute, but it does inform the dialogue and my deliberation. I always try to think of all kids, and all means all. And so there's work to be done, but I feel that I've added voice to what I would consider, our most vulnerable population, for sure.
So one of the issues that was kicking around last year, haven't heard much about it this year, is the Dartmouth Indian logo. This was a school committee matter. There was a non-binding referendum. People showed up and voted overwhelmingly to keep the logo. What's your position on the Indian logo?
Yeah, my husband went to Dartmouth High School. He was a football player. My Liam loves the hockey team, and he loves wearing all of the paraphernalia. But when it came time to vote, that was a very difficult time because I did see a piece of the conversation was missing in terms of really building upon like the education in the schools.
Sure.
So I voted to keep the logo with that caveat that we do some work that's now being done in partnership with the town, the select board, and some other folks, a stakeholder group, and some good work's being done. I'm not monitoring that at this point, but I know that it will eventually come to us, and I'm excited to see that being woven into the fabric of who we are as a community, especially since we voted to keep that symbol for our town.
Of course. Yeah. So we're speaking with Kathleen Amaral. She's a school committee member in the Dartmouth School Committee. She's running for reelection. The election is Tuesday, right? This election is Tuesday. The favorite one's Monday. The election is Tuesday, April 4th. So, Kathleen, I drive through Dartmouth recently. I see a lot of signs. We support Dartmouth teachers. What's going on why are those signs there? And how is the Dartmouth School Committee's relationship with the teachers union right now?
I can't speak for the committee, but I will say that, yes, the signs, that's really important because it's kind of raising the voice as to, the situation with the budget. The budget for the school department is a large budget. But in terms of what we as a district spend per pupil, and we spend lower than 90% of other municipalities in the state. So I guess financially, the financial value, we're really getting a bang for our buck in terms of the incredible educators. They are seeking a fair wage. Their wages are lower than other municipalities. Of course, I can't talk negotiations, but
of course.
We, as a community, yes, there's this thing called Proposition 2.5, which doesn't allow us to raise taxes. Now, does raising taxes answer the question? No, I don't want my taxes raised. I'm certainly willing to contribute, but it's. I think it's safe to. I believe that we are a sympathetic committee as a whole in terms of valuing our educators, and I'm hopeful that we can get there. And I would love to see, with our new leadership, some thinking around like shaking up that bag, shaking up that budget, and perhaps how can we kind of figure out a way to do something better with the teachers, but also just in terms of how we operate.
How is that new leadership done?
Say that again. So
you said you got new leadership.
Yeah. So, well, I shouldn't say it so absolutely, because last night we voted as a committee to hire our new superintendent. So Dr. Bonnie Gifford retired, and Mr. James Kiley, he is our assistant superintendent of business and finance. He's our acting superintendent temporarily. And he's wonderful, but he does not want the position. So we had a large search. And last night we unanimously voted for June Saba McGuire, who is currently the assistant superintendent in Brockton. And what I'm excited about in terms of the budget with her is she was really clear about not being afraid to advertise, promote. When you talk about making a change, you really have to come at it with passion and a purpose. And she was clear about being confident to be able to articulate the why as to whether it's working with Mr. Kiley when she's hopefully pending contract negotiations, when she's our new superintendent, working with our business and finance to advocate on the students' behalf and the teachers' behalf for what needs to happen. So that's one piece of it. And then also working with the town to say, hey, we really need to work, and here's why. Here's why it's important to have a strong public education system in a city or a town. It really adds value. People want to live here. They want to raise their kids here. Those kids then have a great education, and they want to come back here and contribute to the community. So it's a lot of things.
So this new superintendent, you talked about, what other qualifications did she bring that led you and the other members to believe that this was the right choice?
So I'll speak for myself in saying that I was fortunate to be part of a visit to her district.
Okay.
It happened over Zoom because it was the day that we were supposed to get snow, and they did have a half day in Brockton, so it caused... Anyway, we were on Zoom, and we were able throughout the day, it was a long day, meet with different groups of people, different stakeholders within that district. And one underlying theme, because you want to, you have people speaking to you about somebody that you're thinking about bringing into your district, and, do they not want her to stay there? Are they going to say good things just to get rid of her, right? I mean, and so you want to kind of feel them out. And clearly and consistently, every single group of people said, when asked, how do you feel about her leaving, or what about her? And they all, in their own way, articulated that she had worked for the district for over 29 years. So, and there was a lot of retention in their staff. They all worked there for many, many years. That she, over the years, had sat with them as thought partners and been so supportive of them and helped them move on in their career to promotions and that sort of thing, and supported them every step of the way, that they could not, they're sad to see her go, but they couldn't help but be excited to support her in this new level of position for her career.
That's great.
Which I think is great, that cultural piece of people, being so supported by her. And I think that's what we need in our district.
So some of the local conversations with respect to the school committee have been about book banning. I had another candidate on, said, talked about regulating what types of books come in the library. What's your position on book banning in the school libraries?
I'm not supportive of banning books in the school library. I think a lot of those conversations that you hear stem from a place that I don't believe when you come to service, you should have this mindset. So I believe in presuming competence. I believe in good intent. And I also believe in partnering with my schools. One thing that I know your mom from is that we were part of this family leadership group where these groups of families 20 years ago actually helped set a precedent, a law, Chapter 171, where families have substantial consultation or have a seat at the table. And so I'm very passionate about parent voice. And so it's about digging in and learning. And when you do that, you realize that our district has a process and a procedure for what materials are inside of our, what materials students have and what is in our library. We're part of a consortium. I don't know if that's the right word, but we are part of a group of approved by the, this Bill of Rights around what's deemed appropriate, and
Sounds like a consortium sounds applicable.
Yeah, okay. It's probably, and so there are books that have been vetted and meet certain criteria, which in fact the criteria is that it allows students to see themselves in the wording. So if you were to dig a little deeper, you would know and trust that there are processes and procedures. I mean, everybody keeps going to that extreme example of pornography, right? Come on, right?
I know, yeah.
It's just
it's totally,
just ridiculous.
It's totally ridiculous.
And so when you have to build a relationship with the school department in which you can trust one another. I like to call it like an undivorceable relationship. You can move out of town. You can send your kid to a private school, but if you're in that public school district and you're not moving out of Dartmouth, then you better do your best to make sure that you are partnering in the best way for the best outcome for your own children and all the other children.
Speaking with Kathleen Amaral, she is a candidate for school committee. She is running for reelection your third term?
Yes.
Third term. So, Kathleen, is there any other specific issues that we haven't covered yet that you think are important?
Yeah, I mean, one that comes to mind today, unfortunately, is school safety. I know you talked a lot about.
I did. I talked about that in the with the other two school committee candidates in Fairhaven that we interviewed. But yeah, there was a shooting that happened, unfortunately. So what is your relationship with the school resource officers in the town of Dartmouth? What type of role do they play? What type of role do you envision them playing? Do you think it should be expanded? Do you think it should be reduced? And how best can Dartmouth improve school safety?
Yeah, I think in Dartmouth, we do a good job, right? We have a comprehensive emergency management plan, and we provide ALICE training.
What's that?
So it's a process for the school department to plan, so students know what's happening. It's alert, lockdown, inform, counter, evacuate. And so it's a system of like concise, specific language that students and staff are trained on, like active drills and that sort of thing, broken down age appropriately. So the ALICE training in the kindergarten, you hear that as a parent. How are we here? Well, we need to have this training.
Yeah.
Well, the way it's presented to the students is in I don't want to use the word fun for such a strong, a serious topic, but it's broken down
more age appropriate
for them to understand the real meaning. It's about how do you keep students safe? And so as a district, we're pretty strong. We have a great relationship with with the police department. And over the years, we're constantly improving upon the technology, the video cameras, the learning best practices. So we have that stakeholder group with the town and other stakeholders that are always revisiting and making sure that we know the quickest way to escape, the best data, research-based, so that we keep kids safe.
So you're supportive of school resource officers. You want them maintained in school. Do you see any different roles that they could play besides the ones they're playing now?
Yeah, the ones in Dartmouth, I think, play a great role. They are there for safety, of course. They're there for relationship building. I keep mentioning your mom, but so like your mom, I'm always like learning and training and helping others. And, one time I remember being at BCC before I was on the school committee, and I was at a training that was related to the pipeline to prison and being a little bit more social emotional, have a social emotional mindset when you're in situations like discipline and that sort of thing. And our school resource officer was there. So
cool.
I know that Dave Tavares at the middle school really, they can make or break a student's day sometimes.
Of course.
And Dave Tavares, for instance, he's at our middle school, and we have one at our high school, and we have one at the elementary level. She's a friendly face, and she's just, but she does rotate. So we don't have one designated per school. Mm-hmm. But it's the relationship building, it's the familiarity, it's somebody to trust. So I do support our resource officers in our school department.
So we're speaking with Kathleen Amaral. She's a candidate for Dartmouth School Cmte. She's running for reelection. The election is Tuesday, April 4th. April 4th. So we talked about school safety. We've talked about, well, what about curriculum? We're hearing now, it's sort of in the same vein of book banning, but we're hearing now about parents wanting to have a seat at the table for curriculum related issues. What's your position on that?
My answer is I'm supportive of every student, but if somebody really wants, all right, Massachusetts, we follow the Massachusetts curriculum frameworks. It is like very specific and very, each district implements it and utilizes different, materials in terms of like how they assess students, that sort of thing of their learning. But, as a school committee member, the job is very limited. So we set policy, but my position is that we put people, right, as a school committee, we hire the superintendent. We hire and fire the superintendent, essentially, and we manage policy. You're putting somebody in a position because of the skill set, and you've vetted them. You go through this whole process, who has a vision to help implement a plan that allows for, right, nobody's sitting there saying, how can we do really bad things with kids? No, right? It's again, that building that trust and that relationship with them, and allowing teachers to do their job in the classroom. And it starts with putting somebody in that position, that superintendent, who then, oversees those principals of those schools, who then oversees those teachers who are doing the hard work with, meeting the needs of all students in the classroom, differentiating that so that, that students, receive a quality education.
You're running, you're running to maintain your seat. There's another open seat next to you. Anybody in particular that you'd like to serve with?
Well, so we have five. Yeah, so we have 5 pieces. Yes, such put you on the spot. We were asked this at the candidates forum.
Yeah.
And I first said, which I firmly believe, I believe in family engagement. Sure. I actually sat at the table with the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, and I helped as a contributing stakeholder build a document that is meant to be a no wrong door document to allow parents who are interacting with lots of state agencies to have the same information, speaking the same language, helping them be part of the process. So I believe firmly in family engagement, and serving and putting yourself out there to serve is great. But the way that I answer, Bess is a lovely, I support Bess Coughlin. Troy Tufano is a good guy. I don't know Erica. And I mentioned that evening something about, I felt like I had to be honest. The only troublesome candidate that I am worried about is Miss Turner. And in her response, she alluded to my concern being her emails related to COVID. And I'm thinking to myself, I was crying at meetings about COVID. That was a real difficult time and making some really tough decisions. I got emails and I had conversations with hundreds of parents. I sat in the mud, upset and frustrated and trying to make the right decisions. I'm not concerned with her emails about COVID. My concern is about her emails about equity and the way in which she described in some emails to us that she sort of correlated someone who's lazy or struggles to perform a task holding back the other students in the class. And the way she phrased it in the email, which is a public document because it was sent to a public official. I checked on that.
It's a pretty haunting categorization of a child.
It is. And then thus dumbing down many students' educational potential.
Oh, yeah, that's terrible.
So that and that is where I get pause because it not only disrespects me as a parent of a child who learns differently, and also the other students who need the extra help. To say that a teacher doesn't know what her classroom needs is ignorant. And, they're constantly, they know the students that they need to challenge, and they knew the students that they need to differentiate so that student accesses the curriculum, because the goal here is a quality education for all, and it stems with equity. So I would not support a candidate who does not believe in equity or diversity or inclusion. Fundamentally, public education, we educate all students. We don't say we educate some. We don't say we're not going to educate those students, right? This is public education. And so to serve on a board where you don't believe in equity for all students is just frustrating and disappointing. And so that is where my comment came from that night. So there's that.
That's a very, I think, that was a very strong, I think a very strong way to go out unless you think there's something that we missed.
No, that's the whole email.
Okay, cool. I'm interested in reading them. Tell you what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a break. But before I let you go, Kathleen, where can people go to learn more about your campaign?
Okay, so I don't have a website. I'm not that fancy, but or organized. I guess I'm a little too busy, but I have a Facebook page. And I think if you type in Kathleen Amaral reelect or school committee, Kathleen Amaral, it'll pop up. And so please do. I do share a lot. I do like to utilize that platform to educate parents about what's going on in the district and also help them about resources that are happening, throughout the community. So that's something I'm super passionate about.
Kathleen, thanks so much for joining us this evening.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
I'm going to take a break. We'll be back.
1420 WBSM, where freedom of speech lives.
300.
Real-time reaction to everything that happens after the sun goes down.
Going down till the sun comes up.
South Coast Tonight with Marcus and Chris is on WBSM.
Hey, welcome back. That was Kathleen Amaral, candidate for Dartmouth School Committee. Certainly seems very well qualified and knowledgeable and passionate about the issues. And she's been there for a while, I think, an experienced, steady hand. I got to say, I'm very horrified about the stuff that Lynn Turner said about kids who are lazy or struggle to perform. The emails, I read one of the emails just now off the air, and it's pretty haunting. I wish I knew about it when I had her on. I would love to ask her more about it. But it's a pretty haunting characterization of a child, when you're in your formative years, growing up in your formative, when you're... The person you are when you're a child isn't the person you are when you're an adult. It's not indicative of your potential. She sent an email talking about natural gifts, students who have natural gifts to say others don't, and then to say students who are lazy or struggle to perform. That's, like I said, very haunting categorization of a child. And I think you got to think about that stuff when you go out to vote for school committee. And that what Lynn Turner said about children, really, really disgusting stuff. So, but I do like Kathleen. Again, I think seems like a very steady hand, experienced, passionate, has a personal experience that is definitely very valuable as someone who's has a sibling on the that had to receive special education services, getting being in the trenches, being immersed in that unfortunately adversarial process of getting the free and appropriate public education in the least restrictive environment for your child is one that requires a great deal of know-how and resolve. So I think speaks a lot to Kathleen and her character. Listen, I see a call on the line. I got to take this break. I'll be right back. Hey, welcome back. Let's go to the phones. Good evening.
Marcus, how are you?
Hey, Barry, what's up?
Hey, I just want to know one thing. The people that you have on, the school committee people from Dartmouth, are they going to bring back the King of Slocum Road trophy?
Yeah, I should have asked. Yeah.
So in 1978, it came with Lance Martin in football. It came down to a tennis match.
No
to win
kidding.
The King of Slocum Road trophy. Yep. I won.
No kidding. That's awesome.
Oh, no kidding. Don't even look it up because it's like embarrassing. But anyway, so great guest. But Marcus, I want to throw this out there that these school committee people, and you had Bruce Oliver on last week, people in your town, like Pam Kiesler on the school committee, head of PACE, it's a lot of this is contingent upon what they're willing to do or willing to get for purse strings from. So in her case, like somebody like Stan Mickelson, the select board, what can they do to pull the strings to get what they need? And the superintendent, by the way, I listened to the interview, great interview, Marcus.
Thanks.
That superintendent comes from Brockton. The former superintendent of Brockton was a personal friend of mine, Joe Bage, came out. He was a headmaster of East Boston High, and he worked under Jack Unitz, was the mayor of Brockton, Stone Hill grad. And if they have a relationship with the purse, in other words, the mayor, in New Bedford, for example, Bruce Olivero, you had him on, right?
Yeah.
So they choose their superintendent, and if it's cohesive, then they can get what they need done. So money equals the equation. Just no different than you had on Michael Rock, your manager, right, of the studio.
Yeah.
And by the way, unbelievable interview. Michael Rock, he went to the meeting tonight with